Hey guys, welcome to HipHughes History. We're banging out the 1796 presidential election for you guys, the first contested political election in our nation's history, so it's going to be a good one. So giddy up for the learning, guys. Let's go get her done right now. So guys, Washington could have done it again, but he's not going to do it. And he gives his eloquent farewell address at the end of his second term, saying that basically he's going to step down. He's going to hand the mantle over to the next guy, cementing down the two-term presidency, unwritten rule in the Constitution. It's not in the Constitution, but that won't be broken until 1940 with FDR. So with him stepping down, we really have a partisan fight, a political fight for who's going to be the next president. We have four candidates, and even though they are, in a sense, teams, running as president and vice president, because we don't have that 12th Amendment, technically they're all running against each other. So it's going to be a woo-ha-ha. Yeah, I said a woo-ha-ha. So we have John Adams, the current vice president. He's going to pick up the Federalist mantle. And really, when we're talking about issues, we're talking about the national bank, we're talking about foreign policy. Really, those are the two big political balls in this election, with John Adams siding with Hamilton and his national bank, his economic plan behind a strong centralized government, and closer ties with Great Britain, and really looking at the French, who just had the French Revolution, kind of with cross eyes, really worrying about that kind of violence and radicalism coming to the United States. They're going to lay that down at the Democratic Republicans' feet. Now, John Adams chooses his vice president, who's, again, technically running on his own, in Pinckney, say that 10 times fast, who is the former governor of South Carolina. So he chooses a Southerner on purpose. He wants some type of unifying kind of feature of his presidency, bringing the South and the North together. Now, Thomas Jefferson, he, of course, is going to be the Democratic Republican candidate. Now that Washington isn't running, we don't have to worry about Virginia not voting for Thomas Jefferson. And his vice presidential choice, and of course he's running on his own, and I think this guy wanted to win, is going to be Aaron Burr, the infamous American political character who eventually is going to kill Alexander Hamilton in a duel. He is a former senator from New York, so he's going to be running as well. So we have our four candidates, and it truly is a political contest. Only Aaron Burr personally campaigned in that election, but all of the other candidates are going to have their surrogates going out. And really, it's a dirty election. The Federalists are claiming that Jefferson is kind of in the spirit of the French Revolution, a radical who's going to bring violence and beheadings to the United States. They make claims about some of the scientific experiments that he's doing in his home, and they're really going after Jefferson's character. Let's not forget that Jefferson is a Unitarian, which in a sense is a little bit like an atheist. So you have, in a sense, an atheist running for president. That's not going to fly with a lot of very religious citizens in the United States back in 1796. And of course, the Democratic Republicans are going to be throwing mud the other way as well, claiming that John Adams is very pro-British. Of course, we had Jay's Treaty, which is going to kind of normalize relationships between the United States and the former motherland, our colonial entity power, Great Britain. So the Jeffersonian Republicans are claiming that Adams really wants to create, in a sense, a dynasty, a monarchy, that he is in the spirit of the royal family. So a lot of mudslinging going back and forth. So now let's take a look at the results. And I'm just going to keep saying it. We don't have the 12th Amendment. And remember, we also don't have social media. There's no Twitter, so no one's able to really communicate quickly about who they're going to be casting their ballots for. So it's going to be a brouhaha, and the election results are going to create a mess. So we have 16 states in the contest this time. They're all going to cast electoral votes now that we have Tennessee thrown into the mix. There are 138 electoral votes, and I just want to remind you again that electors are casting 2 votes. The person in second is going to be the vice president. So the way that it was supposed to work was everybody who was supposed to vote for John Adams, except for one person, would vote for Pinckney. And that means if one person voted for somebody else, he would come in second. But that's not what went down. And now there's some conspiracy rumors that are floating around about that election. One of them is that Alexander Hamilton didn't dig John Adams. Even though they both were Federalists, they had clashed in the Washington administration over some key political issues. So Hamilton supposedly convinced the South Carolina electors to cast their second vote for Pinckney, and this would give him enough votes to become president. And that's what happened. All 8 electors from South Carolina voted for Jefferson, and their second vote went for Pinckney. So Pinckney could have been and should have been president if Hamilton's plan went down the way it was supposed to, but of course it didn't. And it ended up being that 20 electors who cast their vote for John Adams did not cast their second vote for Pinckney, which means at the end of the day, Thomas Jefferson's going to come in second, which means that we have a Federalist president and a Democratic Republican vice president. The only time in American history that 2 opposing political parties held the positions of presidency and vice presidency. Some people argue that Lincoln and Andrew Johnson were of opposite parties, that of course Johnson was a Democrat from the South who joined Lincoln in his second term, but Lincoln didn't run as a Republican for his second term. He ran under the banner of the Union Party. So technically this is the only instance where we have 2 different political parties in the White House, even though there's no White House yet. That's not coming till 1800. So at the end of the day, John Adams is going to win it with 71 electoral votes. Thomas Jefferson is right on his heels with 68 electoral votes. Pinckney ended up with 59 electoral votes. Aaron Burr ended up with 30 electoral votes. And then there's a cast of characters who people threw their second vote to, like Sam Adams, who ended up with 15 electoral votes. John Jay got 7 electoral votes. Even George Washington got 2 electoral votes. So at the end of the day, that second casting of that ballot really messed things up, and the plan didn't go according to the way it was supposed to go. And here's Jefferson sitting next to John Adams in the White House, really setting up a huge contest between the president and the sitting vice president in 1800 for who's going to win the next election. So, boy, that was a brouhaha. Hope you learned a little bit about the 1796 election as we begin the first party system with the Federalists, ding, 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 on the left, and the Democratic Republicans, ding, 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 on the right. So I always say, guys, where attention goes, energy flows. Make sure you check out the election playlist down in the description below, and we'll see you guys next time that you press any buttons.